Run, Mandy. You must not come to the funeral home. Huh? While on my way to my father's funeral, I answered a call from my husband and felt a chill run down my spine due to the unusual atmosphere. Wait, what's going on? Listen carefully. The thing is. Click, beep, beep, beep. Immediately after, the voice of my screaming husband on the other end of the line was cut off. My name is Mandy Gale, just an ordinary housewife. I live with my husband David, and my in-laws, a total of 4 of us. It has been over 10 years since we married. And my relationships with my husband and in-laws are good. I particularly grew closer to my in-laws over the years, and I loved these 2 dearly. When David and I married, my in-laws, feeling sorry for me as I had no relatives, proposed that I be officially adopted as their daughter. This is because I was orphaned at a young age and raised in an orphanage, having no family of my own. I had always dreamed of having a family, so the idea of getting new parents was very joyful to me. I was initially worried it might be a burden, but my in-laws assured me it was not. So I accepted their proposal. Also, my in-laws, who are self-employed, thought it necessary to keep up with the times a few years ago, and decided to switch from paper to digital for their bookkeeping. However, being new to computers, they were quite troubled, which I helped resolve. Though I was usually using computers just for fun to them. My ability to effortlessly use spreadsheet software must have seemed like a salvation. And they even offered to pay me to help out. Once the housework was done, there was nothing else to do at home. And I wanted to give back to my in-laws, so I gladly agreed. This is one of the reasons I have become involved with my in-laws both personally and professionally, and I might even be closer to them than to David. Everything was going well, more than I could have hoped for. I was very happy, but there was one thing that worried me. It was Hillary, my sister-in-law. Hillary had lived with us until about 3 years ago. But perhaps because of the adoption matter, she seemed to resent me, often clashing with me by calling me derogatory names. Since she is my sister-in-law, I should have tolerated her to some extent and tried to get along. But her attitude towards my in-laws was so terrible that I couldn't stand it. She didn't really work and relied on her parents while regularly demanding money for cigarettes, alcohol, and leisure, commonly insulting my in-laws. After being bullied in high school, Hillary developed a distrust of people, and since then, she hardly went to school, instead hanging out with bad company she met outside of school. Since then, my in-laws have allowed her to do as she pleases out of a sense of guilt and resignation for not understanding her struggles. However, as much as my in-laws tolerated it, I could not remain silent when they were insulted, and as a result, Hillary and I had numerous conflicts. And a defining incident occurred that led Hillary to leave home. My in-laws' business was struggling. Affected by the recession, their performance worsened. And the household finances were in dire straits, pushing them to the brink of having to close the business. At such a time, Hillary came as usual to ask her father for pocket money. "Hey, old man, I'm out of cigarettes, give me some money?" "Oh, and I'm going to play slots, so 10,000 will do." However, this time, perhaps because he was not in his usual calm state, my father-in-law yelled at her. "Don't joke around. You don't even know what will happen to our lives from now on, what slots? If this continues, we might have to close the business and sell this house. When will you ever give me peace of mind?" It had been a while since he had scolded her. So Hillary was taken aback for a moment but then seemed to realize something and asked him, "Wait, so what? Are you guys going to be buried in debt or something? It's not a joke." It wouldn't be strange if the old folks kicked the bucket anytime now. Having debts is ridiculous. I'm definitely not inheriting that. Wow, I can't stand this anymore. I'm leaving this house. I have nothing to do with you guys anymore, and don't ever look for me. Let the debt be paid by that jerk or that bitch over there. With that, Hillary truly never came back home. Afterward, my in-laws' business eventually managed a new venture that succeeded, revitalizing their spirits. It wouldn't have been possible without their long years of experience and flexibility. For a while, their business thrived, and we had a stable few years. However, these happy days suddenly came to an end. My father-in-law passed away. His long-standing illness had slowly worsened over the years, and he died a few days after complaining of ill health and being hospitalized. We could not come to terms with the sudden loss of my father-in-law. Time is cruel, and it waits for no one. With our hearts yet to come to terms, we had to proceed with the wake and funeral arrangements. While searching for a photo to use for the funeral with my mother-in-law, I found an envelope labeled "To my family." Inside was a piece of paper stating that this will was a notarized will, and that it was okay for the family to open it, along with the contact information for the notary public who witnessed its creation. I called David, and we decided to read the contents of the will. It mentioned the inheritance and included words of gratitude and regret to each family member. The inheritance distribution was a bit unusual, with David, my mother-in-law, and I receiving a larger share. Thus, Hillary, although included as a beneficiary, received the smallest amount. Honestly, I thought that was only fair. She had caused quite a lot of trouble for him. Just being included in the inheritance was fortunate enough. I was thinking about this when Hillary suddenly returned. Apparently, she had heard about my father-in-law's death through local friends. And the first thing she said was, "Hey, I came to collect my inheritance. I heard the old man's business was doing well. I'm really strapped for cash lately, so hurry up and give it to me." Hearing this, both David and I almost exploded with anger. However, the funeral for my father-in-law is in 2 days. Now is not the time to deal with Hillary. David told her the inheritance amount she would receive, asking to wait until after the funeral has settled down. Hillary replied with a glare, "Huh? Why is the inheritance so little? That's ridiculous. You think I don't know anything, don't talk down to me." While yelling at David, Hillary seemed to have found the will on the desk. She quickly snatched it up and began reading from the top. The details about the inheritance were mentioned in the first half, so it seemed she understood the situation immediately. Hey, it's one thing that David and that old woman get more than me. But why does this damn woman get more than me too? Plus, wasn't the old man giving her stocks and land rights even when he was alive? Are you saying this unknown bitch is more important than his own blood family? Even David had reached his limit and stood up to retort. Enough. You abandoned this family. Mandy was the one who devotedly helped Dad when his business was in trouble. If you want money that badly, I'll give it to you now. So just leave. Saying that, David took out from his bag a wad of cash he had withdrawn for funeral expenses and threw it at Hillary. Hillary picked it up and, cursing, left. The fact that my father-in-law had passed away might have influenced it, but I couldn't get the phrase, "not blood-related," out of my head. Noticing that something was off with me, my mother-in-law spoke up and we decided to resume looking for my father-in-law's photo. Then, the wake went by without any issues, and on the morning of the funeral, as I was preparing to go to the venue, David, who had gone to buy cigarettes at a store nearby, called me. Could it be something urgent? I picked up the phone feeling somewhat anxious. Hello? What's happened? Is there something wrong? It's bad, Mandy. Listen, do not go to the funeral home. Hide somewhere and ensure your safety. It was the first time I heard David so panicked. The time of the funeral. The ceremony started as planned. It was a bit noisy outside. Our family funeral hall had several rooms available for funerals. Normally, hearing shouting like this would be unlikely, but today it was unavoidable. Someone was yelling loudly in the next room. In our room, there were a priest, David, me, my mother-in-law, a few relatives, and 2 police officers. The door burst open. You're messing around. That bitch. I will never forgive you. Hillary, who was shouting, was quickly subdued by the 2 officers and pinned to the ground. On the morning of the funeral. That bitch Mandy Gale is taking away my family. She's a terrible woman. My parents and brother only care about her, not me. I will never forgive her. So today, I'm going to crash the funeral and make sure she never shows her face around here again. Be prepared. Actually, Hillary had posted on social media about disrupting the funeral. She had even mentioned my name specifically. And David had discovered it. Since Hillary left home 3 years ago, David had been secretly checking her social media. Worried about his sister and keeping up with her whereabouts. On the morning of the funeral, he casually checked and saw the frightening post. Knowing his sister's violent nature, he hurriedly contacted me. After discussing it with the police and the funeral home, several officers were stationed around to guard. And the funeral home used the scheduled room as a decoy, while conducting the funeral in another vacant room. Outside, several of her delinquent friends were being taken away one after another. And she was also taken away by the police. At that moment, my mother-in-law's face looked even more distressed than when my father-in-law had died. Epilog. A few days after the funeral, we went to see Hillary, who was in detention, with my father-in-law's will. However, it seemed Hillary refused to meet us. So, we had to leave after asking them to hand over a copy of the will. The latter part of the will contained words of gratitude and regret to the family. And of course, words addressed to Hillary were also included. To Hillary. When you were a student and said you didn't want to go to school because you were being harassed, I told you to stop whining and forced you to go. In hindsight, that was my first and biggest mistake. I still vividly remember that time and regret it. You were betrayed by people you thought were friends at school, and then abandoned by parents who told you to go to school. Feeling like no one was on your side, you became disillusioned with everything and developed a mistrust of people. But while skipping school and going to various places, you met people in similar situations and for the first time, found companions you could relate to. You might say I shouldn't act like I understand, but I do, because I'm a parent. During that time, you still lashed out at us as usual. But somehow, you seemed more fulfilled than when you were being harassed. It was a happy yet conflicting feeling for me. Because I couldn't accept you hanging out with people who were called delinquents by society. Everyone is just like others, living with their own troubles. I was wrong to label your friends as delinquents and only see that side of them. After you became an adult, I realized that and decided to let you do as you wished. So I didn't complain even if you didn't work, waiting for you to find something you wanted to do. But maybe adopting Mandy as our daughter gave you the wrong impression that you weren't needed. I'm a clueless and lousy father for not noticing these small things. I don't know if you'll believe me now, but I want you to know this. I didn't adopt Mandy because I didn't need you. Rather, I thought she could be a good influence and a good friend for you. Maybe saying this sounds presumptuous. The night you left, I cried for the third time as a parent. The first was when David was born, the second when you were born. I was just so lonely. Why did it have to end this way? I never wanted to burden my children with debt. So I worked hard to turn around the business and get rid of the debt so you could come back anytime. And my efforts were somewhat rewarded, but you weren't there. Remember, no matter how old you get or what you're doing or where you are. Hillary, you are my daughter. I love you. When you read this, I might no longer be in this world, but this is your home. If you ever need something or want to see your family, come back anytime. And please, be as kind to your mother as you can. David, my mother-in-law, and I also received letters from him in the will, revealing his clumsy but heartfelt emotions. Reading these, I couldn't help but cry. Hillary agreed to meet us for a second time. Her eyes were very red and swollen, possibly from having read the will. But there was a calmness to her expression that hadn't been there before. It seemed that Hillary deeply regretted her actions. So we decided to settle the funeral disruption incident amicably with the funeral home. Hillary is now working earnestly to pay the settlement money. She has rehabilitated impressively, setting a goal to help others who faced similar challenges as she did. She's also studying to become a seminar instructor for students who struggle with attending school regularly. Hillary and I have become great friends now. We were also able to clear up the misunderstanding about the inheritance. The reason David, my mother-in-law, and I received a larger share was that we inherited more of the family business-related assets. This was something that would have been a burden for Hillary, who had not been involved in the business. Above all, our father-in-law wanted Hillary to be free from the business and pursue what she loved. Hillary apologized for her previous attitude after understanding our father-in-law's will and his lifelong demeanor towards us, which helped remove any residual grievances between us, allowing us to start our relationship anew. Surprisingly, we found a lot in common and our conversations became lively, quickly bringing us closer. Not only Hillary, but even our father-in-law regretted his mistakes until the end. Everyone makes mistakes, varying only in degree. What's important is to face these mistakes sincerely, reflect on them, and take a step forward. By doing so, I've learned that it's possible to recover and move on.